So thanks everyone. We have a session here, mastering, monitoring and troubleshooting essentials with Aria operations. So, I'm Nico Guerrera. I'm in tech marketing with cloud management, and Tim is my colleague. We're going to go over some of the ways you can troubleshoot. We're going to try and stick to K8's Kubernetes mostly for application monitoring, and we're going to go through how to properly monitor and troubleshoot using Aria operations for apps, and Aria operations for logs. So if you're familiar with our Aria operations suite of products, we're going to give you some quick pointers on what you can do to look for issues in a K8's application environment. We can definitely drill down to the VMs if we need to and anything else, but we want to keep this application focused. So our agenda will start with our introduction, of course, and then we'll show off. Tim will show off some of the ways you can do monitoring and with VMware Aria for applications. We'll do some monitoring and troubleshooting with VMware Aria Ops, and then he will pass that to me, and then I'll show you guys how we can do some further log monitoring, log troubleshooting with unstructured data using VMware Aria operations for logs. And then, as usual, we'll have a question and answer section where you can ask anything, and we will try our best to answer it, or we can get an answer for you if we cannot answer it. So with that, Tim, I'm going to stop sharing my screen because it's crazy, and I'll pass it over to you.
So that if you have that happen again, that's a kooky bug in this platform. So all you have to do is select another tab, and it goes back to normal. I found that out the hard way last week.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. So hopefully we should be seeing the screen and not
Looks
that
good. Yep.
The infinity mirror that we were just looking at. Hopefully we're seeing that right. So yeah, as Nico mentioned, I'm going to talk about troubleshooting in Aria operations to start off with here. We will get to some Kubernetes stuff at the end. At the end of my portion here, I just wanted to kind of show a few other things before we get to that point, just so we can kind of look at the capabilities here within VMware Aria operations. So I'm just at the home screen now, and we're going to keep this fairly high level. This is more of an essentials kind of webinar, meaning we're trying to get more of a getting started with Aria operations. So just going to go through a few different capabilities. We'll look at a couple dashboards, talk about a little bit on the Kubernetes front, and then how we can kind of move between Aria operations and Aria operations for applications. And then, as Nico mentioned, I'll pass to him. We'll talk about logs as well. So just from the home screen, there are some new things here that are coming in with the Launchpad, and that has changed the way we're looking at our operations. Rather than have our pillars of operations across the front, we now have additional capabilities. So we're going to jump in. We're going to start looking at these first. If we want to look at observability or capacity, any of these we could click into, and it will take us to the relevant topic we're looking at. If we want to look at cost and look at our total cost of ownership or our cost drivers or anything that way, that's probably out of the scope of for today. But really, I'm just trying to show a little bit around this Launchpad and what we can do with that. Or maybe we want to look at sustainability, look at our green score, and look at anything we've looked at for clean demand, lean operations, our green supply. But all of that is directly here, on this Launchpad. The other portion we have is the multi-cloud overview, and that's also a new tab that's here on the home screen. So what this will do will be to look at all of our different clouds. I'm going to click on all clouds here, but we can look at all of our different clouds, whether that be our vCenter accounts, whether that be VMware Cloud Foundation, VMware Cloud on AWS, so on and so forth, our private cloud, our public clouds, whichever way we wanted to look at that. And if we see these numbers, that's really just telling us how many accounts are in that particular region. Just trying not to kind of busy up the screen too much, so we can click in and look at all of our different accounts. So we've got all of our AWS accounts here, or a few accounts here in the Netherlands as well. And we can move through and click if we want to look at just our VMware Cloud or AWS. That's something we can do. And really how this pertains to since this is a troubleshooting webinar, how it pertains is really kind of the top level of looking at any of our capacity remaining, our time remaining, finding out if there's any sort of challenges we're going to have in the near future, as well as, if I go back to all clouds here, as well as give us that inventory. And what we're looking for here is just so we can keep track of all of our different accounts, keep track of our compute and storage, our applications that go in it. Obviously, that's an important part. For first looking, we need to know what we have out there. So if we need to troubleshoot anything, we can find those directly. Now, if we have anything, whoops, so we're going to get a quick refresh. If we have anything that is VCF, and I just wanted to touch on this as well, our VMware Cloud Foundation, there is a new tab down here as well, which lets us go and look at only our Cloud Foundation account. So it's going to let us know if we have all applications are available, all our VMs are available, so on and so forth. Gives us the passwords and certificates. We could also open this up and look at our management domains, look at availability of our applications, our virtual machines that are within our management domain, as well as our workload domains as well. So we can look at that either way, any way we want to look at it from there. I'm going to jump back. Let's go back to this, our Launchpad here. And where I wanted to start this was looking at just down below our infrastructure as well. So we have at the top the things we already looked at, our cost of sustainability. We looked at very quickly. But if we look at our infrastructure, we also have vSphere, we have our NSX, our Kubernetes, as well as VMware clouds and public clouds at the bottom as well. And so this is really kind of where we can start if we wanted to just kind of look at our environment and find out, is there anything I need to be concerned about? Is there anything I need to look for first? And so that's kind of, again, how that pertains to troubleshooting, is looking at, now that we've looked at our inventory, now is everything within our inventory, is that available? Is it running okay? How is everything going from that point? So are we looking at, for example, here our availability, and we can look at, let's choose a data center here. Let's choose this one. And we can start to look at uptime. We can look at our average uptime of all of our VMs. Of course, some of these are powered down at the moment. We can look at those. If we have any services running, we can see our services if we're using the service discovery to find out if there's any services. We can look at our trends, and if there's any the trends for the VM as well as the cluster itself. And of course, find out if it's powered on at the moment. So this is once we've got our inventory, we can look at availability and really find out if anything is available or not. We can look at our the count of VMs by uptime. We have some that are not doing so well, but that could be on purpose. Now, just the other another way we can look at this is use some of our management packs that we have. I wanted to bring this up. We do have management packs from the it's Aria Operations for Integrations. It was formerly known as the True Visibility Suite, or TVS, that we could also employ. And any of those management packs for compute or storage, so that'd be Cisco ECS or Dell PowerEdge or NetApp storage or Pure Storage, quite a few different ones. But if we have, if we're using those management packs, those are entitled, so we don't have to. There's no license key or anything we didn't add for those specific management packs. Just to illustrate that, what that might or potentially could look like visually, the top part here of this dashboard that I went to is kind of showing what we get without any sort of management packs installed. We can see we have from the data center to the cluster to the host to the virtual machine to the data store, going from left to right. So we can see all that is there. Of course, there could also be items for show back. We could have things from service discovery without installing any management packs. But if we do install these management packs, and this is the same virtual machine, this IIS W16 virtual machine, if I scroll down, now that I've got these management packs installed, now I can see quite a bit more information. So I can see it's that same virtual machine. Here's our host. We can see the data store up above here. But now we've got management packs installed. So if I scroll to the top, there's our data center and the vCenter. Now we've also got with the management pack, say for example, for Cisco UCS, we're looking down here. We've got the chassis, we've got the fabric interconnects on Cisco UCS, so we can see everything that is connected to the blade there. We've also got a management pack for Microsoft SQL. So now we see our instance, we can see our databases within there. We see the, in this case, the top 10 queries that are running. We've also got the Cisco networking. So this is a Cisco switch we've got here. We can see the ports on that switch. Since we knew this was an IIS virtual machine, so now we can see the websites and the app pools that are going along with that, as well as the management pack for ServiceNow. So we can see over here, it's not a great name maybe, but we see it's part of an application, part of the Aperium application, and it is part of this virtual machine is part of my team. We can see the George team there. So we know it's part of my team according to ServiceNow. So there's a lot of things we could do then once we install these manager packs. This is just the visual representation of the relationships that are created, but each of these would also bring their own set of metrics that go along with that. So what we can do once we have all of our metrics is use something like, actually, I think I have that open. Well, wait a minute. What we can do then is create dashboards that then can use all of these metrics and use the relationships we've created to create sort of a troubleshooting dashboard. So I've got on the left side a list of my, in this case, we're starting at our Microsoft SQL database instances. So I've got just 2 here that I've added, and then we'll get as we, if we wanted to switch it between instances, everything will flash below us, and we get the relationships we wanted. We can kind of move around with our KPIs. I've just got some sample ones set here, but we can look through and all those metrics that are coming through from each of these management packs. So we can look at our, say, for example, our memory workload here, or workload percentage on the virtual machine. We'll get our CPU contention if we want to look at that, so on and so forth. And as we go down all of these relationships that we were just looking at visually, now we have metrics that go along with that we could look into and see if that anything needed to be looked at. So for example, here our database and our virtual machine are both having some potential memory challenges. But if we look at our host system, we will look at our usable percentage on memory. We're still doing okay there. So we might have to look at that virtual machine a little bit and see if we need to adjust its memory capacity so that we can get some more usable memory out of the virtual machine. Host system looks okay, so it's probably just at the virtual machine level, which is translating down potentially to the SQL Server instance as well. Now, from if we wanted to use all of this as well with these management packs, if we wanted to use that more of a application focus, we can do that as well. In this case, this is a GKE, so this is an open telemetry demo or our demo application. We can see the parts around it. We have our Kubernetes tier, we have a web tier, we have our database tier, and our backend storage. So if we click on our backend storage, well, then we'll get kind of what's on the backend. Looks like this is a NetApp coming in from the NetApp management pack here. So we could find that backend storage there. Or we could look at any of our, in this case, so we're looking at the green check marks here. Those are all just saying there's not really any alerts going on. There's not really anything happening here. But if there was anything on these particular nodes, we could also kind of pull some things out from that. So there's that virtual machine we were looking at before. Let's expand that again and see what we have with that virtual machine. All right, so now we've got everything that is connected. I'm just clicking expand node. So again, we already looked at, we had the ServiceNow application, Cisco UCS tags. We know it's a Cisco UCS there. If we went off the host, we could find the Cisco UCS information. So we could kind of pull out here whatever we wanted out of this. Let's just say we want the IIS portion of this. since it is the web tier. So we can pull out the IaaS application and then maybe the application pools and the websites off of there to kind of see where everything goes, how it's related to each other. So that's always great. We can use that then to again use the kind of the heat map there that is giving us if there's any sort of challenges going on within this application. We can both see that visually, and then if we looked at below, so you click an object, we can then pull out any of those metrics we wanted to, and see if there's any sort of challenges again we're having with anything particularly. From there, I mean, that was kind of, again, it's more of a whirlwind tour. So just showing the possibilities, for some dashboards, or once we have any sort of management packs installed, what we could do. If I jump back to our home page here for a moment, take a look at another possibility we can use for our troubleshooting, which is looking into basically our capacity. And that capacity doesn't necessarily sound like it's a troubleshooting situation. However, if we have any sort of undersized or undersized VMs that might be affecting our workloads, that could run into be a troubleshooting situation very quickly, as we just looked at with that SQL Server instance and the VM that was running that SQL Server. Looked like we were having some memory challenges there, so that could always be a possibility. So I just wanted to look at right sizing real quick as it pertains to troubleshooting and avoiding any issues before it comes into play. So I had a data center that's already selected. I can always go to all data centers here, look at all of our data centers. We can see our critical data centers where we have that are maybe optimized, maybe not optimized, probably not. But look at our critical data centers that is probably running out of some sort of space. We have our normal ones. If things that might be optimized might not be optimized, and we're probably not going to get into that. As Anders mentioned, there is an upcoming webinar for kind of looking further into capacity. I just wanted to briefly kind of show what we can do here. So if I look at the undersized VMs, we can see there's only one here that needs to be looked at. Actually, I want to pick a different data center here. I want to look at this specific virtual machine, I think. See if we can find that here. Yeah, let's go back to it. I'll use that one. So the one undersized VM here is looking at CONS-100. And really what this is saying is we've got one vCPU allocated. We've got a recommended CPU increase of one vCPU. Looks like our memory should be fine on that. So really we're just looking here at our memory. And what we could do is we can, right directly from this screen, we could go and say, I want to resize that and add my additional vCPU. If we wanted to do that, we could increase it further. If we wanted to just go to the recommended increase from 1 to 2, we could do that, or we could change that here. Our other option is to go directly to the virtual machine, and then up here under Actions, and this is the summary tab for this virtual machine. Under Actions, we could just go and set our CPU count directly from here. The new vCPU is what the recommended is. We could set that, for whatever, however many CPU we wanted to do that. If we look at those actions again, there's always options to change the memory resources or set the memory for the VM. We can shut down the OS. We can reboot the OS. We can power it off completely. We can move that if we want, delete it unused, or delete any unused snapshots for the VM, so on and so forth. If we did have any sort of agents running here, we'd also see options for things like running scripts. So we could run scripts directly against a virtual machine, or we could go in and get all of the top processes for this virtual machine as well. So there's quite a bit we can do directly from the summary for any particular object. So I'm going to switch our tab and go back to the summary. Will let us know, again, this is one we're looking at. We only have 4 days remaining on our CPU, so that's why we could adjust that CPU as we needed, add additional CPU, vCPU, so that we're not going to run out when it comes to our CPU demand. We could also look at our alerts here if we wanted to look at any of our alerts that are on in particular, we can look at our metrics as well as giving us the relationship overview. We can look at any of the metrics for that object. We were already looking at capacity. We could do compliance, events, or anything we wanted to look at as far as the reports or how this fits in with the remainder of the environment. And the other option we have is we can see this button that is under Troubleshoot. And for troubleshooting, we can click that troubleshoot and it will take us to the Troubleshooting Workbench. For the moment, it is just set, and we want to look at our scope number 1, which is up here in the left corner. And using this Troubleshooting Workbench, we'll see the pillars across, which are any events, anytime a metric or any metric within our scope breaches any sort of dynamic threshold that is being counted. The longer we have a virtual machine running, the better our thresholds and forecasting are going to be for any of our objects. We have our property changes, and then we have anomalous metrics. And anomalous metrics and events seem similar, but really the events are any time that we breach a dynamic threshold. So it'll kind of let us know if you look at any of these specific ones. This one says it's above our dynamic threshold, that DT is dynamic threshold. So it breached a dynamic threshold, and we know, okay, that's something that might be a little out of the ordinary. And anomalous metrics are going to be any time that any of our metrics change or have a dramatic change and stay that way. So anomalous metrics are not going to be just little blips on the radar. It's going to be drastic things we're looking at. And if we look at that right now, it's just letting us know we went from undersized, or it was a normal, to undersized. Looks like I went about 5 days ago or so. So that's just letting us know, hey, we're running out of something, which we already looked at. We know is CPU there. From this screen, our Troubleshooting Workbench, we have many other options we can do. Right now, we're just looking at the scope as it pertains to this virtual machine, as well as one hop up and one hop down. And if we want to see what I mean by that, I'm going to go with custom just to show that again visually here. So right now, we're looking at this virtual machine. We're looking at one hop down. I guess that's kind of the way I look at it. We're looking at the data store, and then one up, and we're looking at the host. So if we wanted to add additional things into it, we could always add additional things. Looks like there isn't much else that would be added here, but if we say, let's just add the cluster and maybe the data center as well. So now we've included all of these objects in our scope. And so rather than just the virtual machine and just direct relatives, now we can see everything that has changed within all of those things, all of the objects we had that we were just looking at. So now that will change a little bit from our anomalous metrics. It will change a little bit on our events and our property changes. We can see that. The other option we have to do, or that we could use, is say we could, there's a little pin button here. We could pin that to a specific metric. This is just a VM count per host. And now we'll see that under metrics, this little dot popped up because we know we've pinned a specific metric. And now we're looking at that, just that metric here when we switch to our metrics tab. Of course, we could still use any metrics we wanted to. For example, if I want to look at our CPU contention, we could certainly use that if we wanted. Now, from this point, now that we've pinned a metric, we have options then to use this metric or any of the metrics we've pulled out of any object to kind of correlate with other objects or itself. So if I look, and let me close this back out again, right here in the upper right hand corner, we've got this correlation button. And if I want to use our CPU contention, I can see, and I don't know if there really is here or not, but I can see if there's any other metrics within just this virtual machine that is correlating with that. So if I click that, let's see if there isn't anything that looks correlating. But what we'll do is say anything that looks kind of like this, or the pattern that this metric has gone through over time, we'll correlate that with any other metric. So if we had our contention was with CPU usage, and that might be a better metric to use. Let's see if we can show some of that one. Not sure if it will, but let's check. Anything correlated. So there we go. So we've got our CPU usage for our virtual machine. Is then going to look at a few other metrics. So highest vCPU usage, that's the same one we're looking at, as well as our run in milliseconds there. So it'll correlate either directly correlation or inversely correlated. So if we're looking at, say, CPU usage and CPU demand, perhaps, if those went up at the same time, then it would correlate that way. If it went one went up and another went down, would correlate that way as well. So inversely as well. If we use the peers in the middle here in metric correlation, that will take into effect any of the other virtual machines, and I doubt that there's any that match that exactly. But this will look at, instead of just this virtual machine we're looking at, will then correlate with any other virtual machines as peer objects within the cluster we're looking at. So if there was anything else that was exactly matching our CPU usage or at least correlated, will then show us there as well. And lastly, if I go back to it, there is then the scope. So we were looking at the scope and we added in quite a few other objects here. It would take, instead of just looking at all of the virtual machines within a cluster, like it would for the peers, if we use this scope button, it will take everything that we're looking at within the scope of, in this case, the Troubleshooting Workbench. Now, this is the only place that this particular option is available, is only within the Troubleshooting Workbench. So if we're looking at it anywhere else, we can certainly use the correlation button to correlate, again, either directly or inversely. We can correlate with any metrics from any metric chart, whether that be in a dashboard or wherever it might be, but within a selected scope is only available here within the Troubleshooting Workbench. So I just want to jump now. I'm going to jump to here's a dashboard, and I know we kind of talked. We were trying to keep this Kubernetes focused, and now that I'm almost finished here, let's talk about Kubernetes a little bit. So this is a dashboard I've created just to kind of show the different Kubernetes clusters we have running. In this case, that are running our demos we're doing for our Explorer in Vegas next week. So it runs our two clusters, and we can switch back and forth, and it will change this for us. So just a dashboard that kind of helps us look at the alerts, our inventory, and our least healthy objects from within the cluster we've selected. They also set it up so that we've got whichever cluster we were on, we can see the namespaces, number one, below it. And then if we're looking, we also have deployments and services below if we want to look at that way. So for example, let me switch to this cluster, and I want to look at the default namespace here. So if I click the default namespace, now we can see the application that's running here, or deployment. We can see the pods, replica sets, that is connected to, and any of the other services that are there. So if I click on a service, we can see the service, or if I click on the deployment, we can see everything that is just with this specific deployment, which is actually where our application is running there. So then we could also then see our pods and replica sets that are kind of make that up. Whatever it is I've clicked on as well, we can then use this metric picker. So the last thing I've clicked on was this Kubernetes pod, and I can then pull out any of our metric charts or use our metric charts. So if I want to say our CPU usage for the pod, I can double click that and look there. And again, this is what I was talking. We do have that correlation button available for us, but you'll notice we don't have that scope button here. We can correlate with itself or its peers directly to see if anything is matching this or similar to this CPU usage on this particular pod.
Tim, it looks like it's not refreshing. Could you maybe refresh the screen, different tab?
Oh,
we're just seeing the usage percent, and that's it. Oh, there we go. Now we see it.
Maybe it was the tab. I didn't switch to the right tab or something there.
Oops. Okay, yeah, we see Moat TKG now.
Oh, so okay. Well, I was clicking through and kind of showing how we can look at our Kubernetes clusters. Nico, did we miss all this part where I was kind of looking through this dashboard?
Yeah, we missed all this. Maybe you want to go over it again.
Oh, well, my bad. That's always the funny quirks when you have different platforms for presenting on these webinars. Probably was what was going through there. So what I was saying was that if we look at our various clusters, we then have our namespaces, and you probably heard me talk about it. You just get to see it. But if we click on our default namespace, we then get all of the information, our deployments, our replica sets, our services there. And if we click on just our deployment below in the widget below, we can see just our deployment there, everything that's associated with that deployment, the pods, and the replica sets with that. This is where our actual application, our OpenCart application that we're running is. And then what I was showing was that on the pod, which I've already clicked on, I was just bringing out our CPU usage here and showing that correlation button and how we didn't have that scope button there. So just wanted to just reiterate how we can potentially see that. Now, if we went to any of these particular, any of our Kubernetes objects, so I'm just going to go to one here. Let's see, go to this one here. If I go to the object, like we were looking at before, hopefully that was able to see before when we used our actions button for setting our CPU or our memory, anything that way. In this case, we have the option to open this Kubernetes node directly in Aria operations for applications. And I'm going to share this tab instead. I think I learned my lesson there. So now it'll open a new tab with us from Aria operations to Aria operations for applications. And now it launched that in context. If we look at this is the node we're looking at. In this case, is an EC2 instance. So we can launch in context directly to our Aria operations for applications. We can look at our Kubernetes nodes. We can look at our pods within there, and we can look and see if there's any sort of issues that are happening with on the Kubernetes side. In this case, I actually see that there are some here. It's showing that some of our pods are pending because we have insufficient memory here. So we've got some pending nodes or pending pods that are not able to be spun up for this particular application. If I go and look at our application, let's go to our service dashboard. I want to go to, let's see here. I think it's this one here. Yeah, it looks like it's there. So now we can see our failed requests for our demo. We can look through, or for our application, and look at all of the metrics that we want to look at from the Aria operations for application side. One last thing I did want to talk about real quick. I'm actually going to go back to that dashboard we were just looking at. And this is where I'm going to kind of change it over, and we'll give it over to Nico here in a moment. But this is that Kubernetes dashboard we were just looking at, and hopefully we're seeing the right tab. Nico, were you seeing the right tab?
We are. Yep.
Okay, perfect. If we're looking there, the last thing we have that I didn't scroll down to is a new widget we can use in our dashboards, which is a log analysis widget. We can go to directly from our environment. We can go to a log analysis and look there. But we have the option to then look at our logs for particular objects within the in this case, our dashboard we're looking at. But it's something we can use. Now, we can also launch directly into our operations for logs and look at things there. But we do have the option to use a widget and add those into our dashboards as well. But I'm going to turn it over to Nico then at the moment, so that Nico can talk to us about our operations for logs and the options there as well. So Nico, take it away.
Thank you so much. So we had one question: is Aria available only in SaaS, or can we have it on-prem? Aria operations and Aria operations for logs are available both SaaS and on-prem. I believe Aria operations for applications, which is our app monitoring traces tool, that is only available in SaaS. So if you do want to get started with Aria Ops or Aria Logs, and you want to try it out on your on-prem environment, we do offer deployable OVAs. You would just have to deploy them and configure it, and then you can get started on-prem. Awesome. So yeah, Tim went over a few of the ways that we can use Aria operations to troubleshoot some of our our cluster is using either metrics or CPU, disk, stuff like that. We can see what's going on. If we want to drill down a little deeper and we want to look at our logs, we do have that nice transition from ARIA operations to ARIA operations for logs using our integration. So once you move into ARIA operations for logs, we do have to set up the ARIA operations for logs agents to collect logs from our Kubernetes clusters. So we do have instructions that are good to go. If you click on the log sources section, we have a Kubernetes application set with instructions on how to install everything. You will have to get a little familiar with FluentD. So FluentD is an open source log collector that will run on Linux, Windows, a host of different services. And we give you the configuration file. So you can, once you install the FluentD agent, you can just literally copy and paste this config file into your FluentD agent config, and it will collect the Kubernetes logs. And it will, as you can see here, you specify the endpoint URL as login site. It knows it. We used to call ARIA logs VMware Log Intelligence. It knows the type. It formats all the logs properly as JSONs. You put in the access key for the API token, and it structures everything properly so you can get those logs flowing into ARIA logs. And so once you grab all of these config files and you put them into the FluentD agent, and you start up that agent and the logs start flowing into ARIA logs, you can verify that's working. We have a little tab here called logs. And if you click on that, as soon as you finish configuring your FluentD agent to pull logs into ARIA logs, you could use this little logs tab just to make sure, hey, any log types that are coming in with the metadata Kubernetes, we're getting them. And so if you didn't configure your agent properly, this would show as 0 logs coming in. Since we configured our agent properly and we're pulling our Kubernetes logs in, we can see that we're getting about 100, 150 logs every 5 minutes. And so once we have those logs, we can explore them. So we go to our log explorer. And if I want to search for, we have a demo called a Moad. It runs OpenCart. So OpenCart is an online shopping application. So we're pulling the logs from that online shopping application from the different Kubernetes containers, whether that's Apache or the HTML or the middleware or the database. We even do the database in the back end. So if we search for my OpenCart, you can see here that we're pulling in logs from the containers. We're doing a tail here, and you can see that we're grabbing a few logs about what's going on. Somebody's following a tail. They're doing some tails and things like that. So once we have that, we could scroll down. We could see all of our logs. So this isn't super useful. It's kind of just a stream of logs. What we like to do to make things a little more useful is always, I'll show you later, but we could do a search for checkout, and we want to see all of the times that a user has checked out. So you can see here we have a response from the Apache server basically saying, hey, at our OpenCart app, there was a successful checkout. There was a post where someone went to the checkout and they added something and they checked out properly. So we have that, and we can scroll down, of course, and we can see all of these. Individual log stream, not super useful. If you want to make it a little more useful, we just go to our dashboards. And I've created a dashboard with all of those OpenCart information that we have. So if I click on this, you can see here, I created a widget for checkout success. So basically all I did was take that checkout string that I searched for, and I just made it into a dashboard. So we could see in the past, in this past amount of time, looks like over the past few days, we had a few successful checkouts. We had, at one point, we had 500,000 cart events. So maybe, obviously, we can go troubleshoot, look into that. If it's not the holidays, if it's not a special time for people to be buying, maybe we had some weird recursion issue or something like that that created a bunch of gets, and maybe we want to look into that and fix it. And then we can just see our OpenCart, all events that are coming in from that OpenCart application in this dashboard. This dashboard can be customized. You can add more things. You can add 404 errors. You can add all kinds of issues from the Apache web server. You can add issues from the database because we're monitoring the database. So if the MySQL database is full or you're erroring out with some insert somewhere, you can throw that in here. Anything that comes from a log that we're pulling, you can make into one of these dashboards. So if we go back to our log sources and we want to start looking at how do we configure MySQL, we would just install our standard VMware Aria for Operations log agent. So we give you the instructions on install it here. It's pretty simple. It's literally just deploying an agent, setting up the destination login or Aria log server, and doing a sample configuration. We give you the configuration to monitor the top normal applications like MySQL, like Oracle, like Apache, like Nginx and stuff like that. So, once you have this configured, we go to our configuration here. We go to our Aria operations for logs agents. We break it down to our MySQL agents. And so you can see we have a few MySQL agents here that are running, pulling information from Ubuntu servers that are running MySQL. And so if you want to see exactly what we're collecting, we have an agent configuration down here at the bottom. So if we click here, the agent is scraping var log MySQL, which is a standard directory in MySQL for most Linux distributions. So it's scraping them, it's setting the character set, it's excluding certain fields, it's looking for stuff in error.log. This one's looking for logs in MySQL.log. So query inserts or people logging in, doing stuff, you're always going to want to know what's going on there. So we collect those logs. If MySQL detects that a query is going slow, there's a MySQL slow log that we can pull from. And then we also just want to pull from standard syslog on the Linux machine just to correlate what's going on in the file system to what's going on with MySQL. So you can create these configurations either by building them in that builder or just doing a standard edit. And it's pretty simple. You just give it a file log that you want to collect, give it the directory, you include all the log files. You can give event markers saying, hey, if you see these certain markers, parse by these, and you can specify the character set and things like that. So all of this is already specified for you under our MySQL content pack. You can edit it, make it more robust. You can change it for your environment, but we do get you started with an agent configuration. And so once we're pulling those logs and our agents are all configured, and you can see here, okay, we're sending events. These agents have sent 200,000 events, 300,000 events. They're all reporting as active with a high uptime. So once these agents are configured and pulling, we can go back to our log explorer. We can add a filter and we can say, hey, I want product and I want MySQL as a product. And then if we search for product contains MySQL as a field, you can see here are all MySQL logs. So we can sort this by types instead of a stream. So this will show you how many of each type of log has come in from a certain amount of time. So within the past 6 hours, it looks like we've had 1,500 or 40% of our logs have been access denied for user root. So this is obviously concerning. It looks like a root user is trying to log in and they're failing, using the password and not using the password. So you probably want to look into that. See if a service account's trying to log in as root and failing because the password's changed. See if a user's trying to log in and they keep fudging it, and talk to them and tell them that the password changed or that they don't have access. So something like this, obviously very useful, showing the number of root logins if we sort the logs by type. So once we do that, we can always go to our hamburger menu, 3-dot menu up here, and we like this, we'll add it to our dashboard. So we create a new dashboard called MySQL Events. We make it into an event stream, or an event type, I'm sorry. So you'll see it as types, just like you saw it here. We want to put this in our OpenCart dashboard. And now when we add it, okay, we have a new widget in our dashboard called MySQL Events. And just like under the Log Explorer, if you want to see what's going on with your top logs, looks like over the past 1 hour, we had 50 logs that are showing information here, some new job stuff. Here's a quick 54 logs. Root user is executing a command. Maybe we see that when we log into our Aria logs, operations for logs, and we say, okay, that's not good. I need to go see what's going on. And then you can go into your log explorer and you can dig a little deeper, and you can basically say, okay, this job that's running as root is fine, no problem, or this job shouldn't be running as root. Good thing I noticed it in my widget. Let me fix that and get that going. So, Aria operations for logs does a very clean job of structuring our unstructured log data into these different widgets and dashboards. So, we always say, so if you go into ARIA operations for logs, you start doing your troubleshooting, you start doing your correlation, and you see you need to dig a little further. Maybe you have to check the logs out and you have to see what's going on beyond just the metrics. You can always just navigate straight from ARIA operations to ARIA operations for logs using that logs dashboard that Tim showed you, or going through via the Log Explorer. We do have our own Log Explorer in ARIA operations. You can explore logs, or if you need to drill down further, it will bring you right to ARIA operations for logs with a simple click of a button. And then from there, we can go and do all the same troubleshooting that I just showed using the logs for Kubernetes or for VMs or for storage arrays, whatever you need to do. It's just a simple click of a button, and then you move on to our ARIA operations for logs, and you can continue doing your logs troubleshooting from there. So that's everything I had as far as my my spiel for ARIA logs. We want to direct everyone that we have a really cool TechZone page. It's apps.managementtechzone.vmware.com, and I will paste this into the announcements. If you go here, you can do hands-on labs on operations and ARIA operations for logs. You can get documentation, you can read blogs, you can do videos, all kinds of really cool stuff. A lot of the stuff that I just demoed there, we have labs for at our Cloud Management Tech Zone page. So just check out the success journeys that are there. They'll walk you through high level, intermediate level, and advanced level topics. And then we have them all broken down into a nice little structure. So you can start at the top and work your way down as you feel comfortable with documentation and labs. And then, of course, once you feel really comfortable, do it in your environment. If you're interested in some SaaS products, sign up for a free trial and get that 30-day trial of VMware Aria operations or operations for log SaaS. And you can go play around, become an expert with it, understand how it works, and leverage it from there. So any questions that we can answer within the final few minutes we have, please feel free to post them.